Do you mind sharing the price that you paid?
No, 125.
So many expats are looking to move abroad.
Expats and gringos, they don't have 30 years. They're looking for something now.
Right now. Do you think it's still a good time to buy property in Panama? Was it difficult to find the property? What do you think would be the next Boquete? Today I have a special treat for you. We're going to be exploring the story of this interesting man sitting next to me here. Where are we at right now, sir?
We are at Tree Trek.
Tree Trek. We are in the wonderful city of Boquete in the western half of Panama, lowest country in Central America. Could you please tell us about yourself?
My name is Jeff Flynn. I grew up in South Louisiana, down the bayou, in a little town called Houma, and spent most of my adult career raising a family in Baton Rouge, the capital area, but worked in sugarcane as a sugarcane scientist. I'm an entomologist, an insect person by education and passion.
Where are you living right now?
Oh, right now I'm living here in Boquete. I'm living up on the side of a volcano, a dormant, presently dormant volcano known as Volcan Baru, the highest point of this country of Panama. And Boquete is a boquete, a valley within these mountains in extinct, these mountain range built by volcanic activity.
How much time did you spend working in Louisiana before you discovered Panama?
Well, I was in Louisiana from the time I was 1 year old until the time I moved. I did move briefly to Georgia to be close to a son and grandchildren several years back, kind of south middle Georgia. But I spent most of my career working for a company in Louisiana, but that company and that position brought me to places in the world that grew sugarcane, and states like Florida, South Texas, but more importantly, it brought me to places like Central America, El Salvador, Guatemala, Philippines, but eventually it brought me here on a little contract working at a sugar mill in the province of Chiriquí, which is where we're located right now, the western highlands of Panama. And I was about 2009. I ended up at this sugar mill. I was recruited to come over here to consult on a project, and of course, sugarcane has grown low altitudes where it's hot and steamy, and that's what I'm used to in my career, doing work in those kind of environments. And one day, the manager of agriculture for this sugar mill in Chiriquí, the only sugar mill in Chiriquí, in a little town called Alange, invited me out to dinner. He says, "I want to bring you someplace you probably find interesting." And so we left sea level, where the sugar mill was in the town of David, capital of this province, and we started driving up. And by the time we got halfway here, he turned off the air conditioner and opened up the windows. And what a surprise, a pleasant surprise it was. And we ended up here in Boquete, and of course that piqued my mind. I started exploring more about Boquete, and with the thoughts of having spent years visiting places like El Salvador and Guatemala. I actually loved these areas because of their tropical beauty, their richness. And when I got to Panama, I knew I had arrived.
This was the place for you, right?
Yes. Even before I came to Boquete, I knew I had arrived. And when I got to Boquete, then it was not a question of, okay, do I want to live here? It's like, let me look for something to buy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I
So
want to
you
own some of this.
you
Yeah.
came here, and what year for the first time?
2009.
2009, and you waited because you came back for work after that, wasn't that right?
Yeah, I was coming here about 4 times a year, periodically for some work, and not a lot. It wasn't a huge project, but I was looking for every excuse in the world to come here to check on the project, and I would always spend an extra 3 or 4 days, whatever I could spare from my job, um, and in a rental vehicle, exploring the area and trying to familiarize myself with. And it's a little place, but there are so many nooks and crannies and microclimates. It's a small place that's very diverse, ecologically, meteorologically, in a lot of different ways, and so yeah, I started on my quest to find where my forever home was going to be for the rest of my life, and
I find that
and I'm here.
I find that quite interesting. Your story is quite a quick passion. Like you came here and you pretty much knew right away while working, okay, this is a great place. I think this is for me. And then when you came up here, okay, I want to find property here. Like it was pretty quick. I think in some people's stories, they spend some time looking, and you found this place like.
Yeah, they don't even recommend people to do what I did, but
Yeah,
some people
right.
do. But I mean, you just have this kind of this click that happens sometimes in your life, and you see something and you say, it's in my price range, and it's obvious that this is where I want it to be. I was always very attracted, like I say, to Hispanic cultures, anyways, and tropical areas, and this provided the best of everything I was looking for.
After coming, you came back for contracts, and then you came up here, you wanted to buy property. Was it difficult to find the property, or someone helped you and then you bought it pretty easily? How difficult was that process?
It wasn't that hard. I mean, this was, we're talking about starting 14 or so years ago, really starting to look. And by chance, when I was in college at Louisiana State University working on my master's, a guy came into the department where I was working. He's working on an MBA, and he wanted to delay his time going back to Panama, and he came to work in our department, and who I was working with. We became really fast friends. This was in 1982, 83, probably 84, 85. We totally lost track of each other. Fast forward to 2009, I Googled him. By luck, he didn't have a Hispanic name. And I found him. Walter Myers, he lives in Panama. He's, Panamano, and true. And we reconnected. And he was in the real estate business as well, had connections.
There you go.
It's a small country. People-wise, it's a small country. And he knew people here. He had friends here. And he comes to see me as often as he can get away. And anyways, he hooked me up with somebody that could start showing me around. And this was the person I was with when I found the place I live right now.
Fantastic. And you said you bought it in 2013, was it?
2011.
2011. So 2011 was probably a really good time to buy because, I think maybe as time progresses, many more people are looking at options abroad. As before, I don't think it was nearly as common. Do you think that's a fair statement? It wasn't as common in that year, or do you think it was pretty big?
This is the real story. Is if I'd have come here 10 years before, that would have been the ultimate time to find. What happened was people were buying up stuff here. People were buying up stuff in Costa Rica, and prices were really jacking up. And then 2008 hit, and there was a big crash. There was an economic crash, especially in the U.S., and so it kind of slumped the market. So it was not a bad time. It wasn't a terrible time, and it was, it was the right time in my life to be doing that, because I knew I was getting, you know, I could see where retirement was coming. I wasn't sure how many more years I wanted to work full time. And I'm sure that finding, you know, the place here that I wanted to be hastened that progress toward retirement
For sure.
greatly.
What age did you buy it at?
I was, let me think, that would have been about 55-ish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
So 55-ish, I'm thinking somewhere around there,
right,
in the mid-50s.
You're definitely staring at some retirement at some point soon at that point.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah.
So you bought the property, and I guess my question from asking if it was a good time is, do you think it's still a good time to buy property in Panama? Do you think the prices are far too overpriced, or do you think they're pretty reasonable still?
It depends on where you're at in Panama greatly. A place like Boquete, it's, you know, it's way discovered. There's people, but there's always this flow in and flow out, and we just had an outflow of people that left because there was about a 6-week long protest in the country that shut down the main artery between Boquete, or this western part, and the capital, and it affected a lot of things and access to certain things, and made people nervous, people that weren't that committed to being residents here. And so that, you know, I'm thinking there's probably availabilities, price wise, things have of course floated up in price. Prices, I thought prices were not that cheap when I bought, to be honest. But of course they're more expensive now, as you would expect.
Yeah.
You know,
In time prices will typically just go up.
yeah, that's right.
But in your point of view, maybe because of that protest, and maybe even though so many expats are looking to move abroad, you think that the prices in many parts of the country aren't super overpriced? I mean, I'm thinking maybe Panama City. Do you think it's maybe overpriced there, or do you think it's pretty reasonable as well?
Panama City's gotten expensive.
Yeah.
It has. And I think that's probably the last 10 to 15 years. It's changed pretty dramatically there as well.
So you think in the smaller cities it's a bit more reasonable?
The smaller cities, yes.
Gotcha.
And some of the moderate-sized cities as well. There are areas that I could tell people that are maybe 30 years from now, the next Boquetes, you know, that would be. But, you know, most people that are looking to move here, as far as expats and gringos, they don't have 30 years.
Right. Yeah.
They're looking for something now.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, they're looking for something now and a quality of life. And in this place, one of the reasons it's so attractive to people, the prime number one reason is the climate. It's just they refer to it as the city of eternal spring. You know, it's never really too hot and it's never really too cold.
Right, we're in the Goldilocks zone, as I refer to in most of my videos, which is generally between like 1,000 and 1,500, I would say. You can go maybe up to 2,000, but yeah, I'd say 1,000 to 1,500 is the general area meters. Where it's, meters, that's not like usually never below 60 Fahrenheit and never above 80 kind of ish, depending on where you are. 1,000 maybe a little bit hotter, and then above 1,600, where I went today on the loop, was 1,700 at the top of the Boquete. So yeah, that's kind of the exact range, and it's my favorite range as well. I absolutely love living in this exact altitude. So this is one of the hot reasons for moving out here. You're totally right. So yeah, this is a good spot. What do you think would be the next Boquete, the little mini undiscovered Boquete? Do you have any secret seasonings to add into the video?
You should go do your next little YouTube there. It's a place called Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
Yeah. We'll talk about that at some point. But yeah, it's a small.
Keep it in mind. Santa Fe is a good one.
It's a small little town, beautiful area, not as high as here, but it does have some altitude. I couldn't tell you right off the top, maybe 800 or 900 meter area, but it's beautiful, and there aren't very many expats there at this time.
Not yet. So that could be the diamond in the rough, right?
Yeah, exactly. And but there are some moving in, and it's got some interesting charm to it.
Gotcha.
And access to going to both oceans. Because the thing you got to remember about Panama is you're on a narrow isthmus, and you can go to the Pacific and you can go to the Atlantic side in one day. In Boquete, there's no direct access to the Atlantic side. You have to go back toward David a ways and go around, but it's not a big deal.
Go around the base of the
You
volcano.
do, yeah. Well, yeah, you go down. You go down
yeah.
toward David, and go around. But yeah. And this other place has more. You know, it's like right in the middle.
Right in there, huh? So I actually did drive from the Pacific up to the Caribbean in 1 hour. So the Panama City going up to Cologne, that's 45-minute drive.
Okay.
So you can do ocean to ocean in less than an hour in Panama. That's one weird, awesome, cool, like interesting thing about being in this country is crossing from one extreme to the other, one ocean to the other. You can see both oceans within an hour or two.
And one climate to another.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, big changes. Yeah. So let's go back to your story about living in Boquete. You purchased your property in Boquete, this place that your real estate friend that you met in the U.S. He helped you find it. You bought it, and you didn't start living there right away, correct? You decided to do something.
I was still full-time employed, and was an uncertain number of years away from retirement, so it was like a placeholder, a place that I wanted to eventually get to, and of course a place that I wanted to come visit whenever it was possible to get away. It's not that far away. I mean, from Houston, for example, it's about a 4.5 hour flight from Panama City. So it's further to go from Baton Rouge to the West Coast in the United States than it is to come to Panama. I knew that at some point I wanted to get here, but uncertain when. So the option was to just rent the place out, which it was already kind of a rental place to begin with.
Did you buy it furnished?
It had everything but a toothbrush in it. Yeah.
Easy move then.
Easy move. Yeah, curtains, beds, chairs, refrigerator, stove. Yeah, because it was a rental property, and it had everything in it.
Do you mind sharing the price that you paid back in 2011, or is that top secret?
No, 125.
125. Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath.
Fully furnished also, that's great.
Yeah, fully furnished, and not a lot of land, but the thing I liked about it, it's on properties that I have just 2 neighbors that also the same 3 houses were built, 3 units were built. It was called Zen Garden by the lady who developed it, Panameno. It was her family, her father's owned a lot of the properties here, and when he died, the children inherited it, and this is what she did with part of her inheritance is she built these rentals. And the fact that it's on adjacent lands and you can just roam around and not have to be responsible for taking care of all the other properties, but your own little piece of it. But and it was all originally coffee land. I mean, this was a coffee finca. So there was some old coffee and that I inherited. Some of the plants were 50, 60 plus years old, probably. Big grandpa old coffee plants. Yeah. And mature vegetation, a lot of mature, there was already bananas on it. There was already certain trees on it, some tropical trees. There was already, a lot of ornamentals planted, and it was just come in and start adding stuff into it.
So if you don't mind, I'll take a little reel of your outside of your house so people can see what type of space you're talking about and the land and how it looks, because it's a beautiful place and it's a really cool little gem that you found there. So it's a really cool option, really cool place for you to live. Exhibit A, we have the property belonging to Mr. Jeff. Here are all of these plants and trees coming on over to his house. banana trees in the background. On that hill, basically planted into that hill. Here's his very beautiful house. Princesa in front. And some of the plants and landscaping that was done, he said that this was not something he did himself. It was already done when he moved in. Here's the side of his house. Let's walk on in here through the path. So you said it was bought, furnished, and then you started renting it out yourself for many years, was it?
Yeah, I rented it out, and it was easy to do because at that time I had a neighbor who was kind of in the business of connecting with expats, and is still in that business, and so she was in a great place to choose her neighbors. and so she was selective about who she would, who would contract to stay in this place. And so it was easy. Yeah, it was easy. I just had good, primarily expat renters coming from Canada and the U.S. And they would stay, maybe a year or two. One guy, one of my early rentals was a friend that moved here kind of in his late years. He was probably late 60s, early 70s, and he was my first rental. And he just passed away a little over a year ago. And good friend for many years. But he loved living here, and he eventually moved out of my place to move closer to town. But he was a lot of interesting people moved here from different places. He moved from California. But a lot of interesting people move here, and all have interesting stories. You could do this interview with a lot of different people and get a lot of different perspectives on the different characters living here.
After I saw you at the Tuesday market in the morning, I saw a few of those little characters there today, and I was like, oh, that's quite an interesting group we have here. Like quite a mix of expats that are from all around, and they're all doing their own little thing. That's pretty cool. I liked seeing that. You rented it out, and then you decided, I'm going to fully live in Panama. And was this around the time when you decided to fully also become a jubilado, to fully retire?
Not quite, but not long after. I mean, I retired at 60 and a half, and but I still did contract work, consulting work for maybe another 4 years after that, and eventually that started playing out. And once that played out, then I decided it was time to move. And this was, like I said, this is probably about 4 years ago.
Gotcha.
Thinking about it real hard, 4 or 5 years ago.
So you were semi-retired. You basically said, I'm gonna slow down on the work, and you did kind of like half time or something like that.
Well, it was less than that. It was. Than that. I mean, I had the same job working for a company building with a core group of people in Louisiana that we kind of built a company that's still going today in the sugar business, sugarcane business, and they wanted me to stay on for 3 years to kind of help the guy that was replacing me, kind of give him some backup for a few years, and doing some independent consulting at the same time. Right. So that was 3 years, and then a couple more years of which I love to travel. So I got to travel some cool places to do some contracts. Yeah. And then that played out, and I decided to be a full-time jubilado.
A full-time expat, full-time retired superstar here in Boquete. So that was 2020, you said, like right after the pandemic you came out?
Yeah. I mean, the plan was kind of end of 2019, and I got caught back in the U.S. during the pandemic, where you couldn't get back into Panama during that time. Right. and travel restrictions and everything. So yeah, it was October of 2020 when I became a full-timer.
Gotcha. And then from that point on, it's been pretty much all of your time here, and then some trips back to visit family and such for work and projects as well, or just for family and friends to go to the U.S.
Family and friends. Family and friends. Yes, exactly.
So the projects that you're doing here are basically here in Panama now.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Awesome.